Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your Tuesday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, in less than 2 weeks, Montana moves into phase 2 of reopening. Gathering in groups can grow to 50. Businesses can allow in more customers, and the mandated 14-day quarantine for those entering Montana will disappear. But all this must still be done under current restrictions and rules. Q2's Russ Riesinger is standing by in the newsroom tonight to explain what that means and how that can happen. Russ.
Well, Jeanelle, Governor Bullock said today the steps we have taken as Montanans are the reason we have the lowest number of cases and hospitalizations per capita than any other state in the nation. He said we all need to make a habit of what we have been doing as we take another step closer to some semblance of normal. So here are the highlights of what will change as Montana moves to phase 2 of the reopening of the Big Sky Plan. Beginning on June 1st, the 14-day quarantine for anyone coming into Montana is lifted. That's the day Montana's entrances to Yellowstone National Park are set to open. Screening will still be done at airports and train depots. Gatherings may now expand to 50 people and can be even larger as long as social distancing can be observed. Also, restaurants and bars will be able to let in even more customers, increasing their capacity to 75%. And bowling alleys and concert halls will be able to operate with reduced capacity and strict social distancing.
Montanans and businesses need to understand that these guidelines, which were developed in consultation with both public health and business representatives, are in place to protect people from COVID-19 and to allow us to move forward with the phases. Not following these guidelines is what will get us in trouble. Not following these guidelines could very well put us in a position where we would have to go backwards instead of being able to continue to move forward.
Now, one thing that does not change in this next phase is that visits to long-term nursing homes are still suspended. Bullock saying that with every phase we go up to, it will increase the risk of transmission. And he says we all have a responsibility to protect one another as long as the virus is still with us. And it definitely is. We just received word into the newsroom, Jeanelle, that 6 more people have tested positive in Ravalli County. Jeanelle?
All right. Thanks so much, Russ. Well, swimming pools are on Bullock's list of facilities that can also open on June 1, although at 75% their capacity. The Oasis Water Park in the Billings Heights plans to open about that time and was holding lifeguard training for staff today. According to the water park's website, cleaning and sanitation will be increased, and patrons will be encouraged to practice social distancing while buying tickets or using public spaces. According to the Centers for Disease Control, there is not evidence that COVID-19 is spread through pool water. Billings Park and Rec employees say city pools are expected to open on time, which is June 3rd. Q2's Mitch Laggy will have more on this story tonight at 10. And as Russ just said, the latest COVID-19 numbers show 7 new positive cases. One of those here in Yellowstone County, the others in Ravalli County. State health officials also say 3 more people have recovered from the virus. And in Wyoming, there are 6 more COVID-19 cases reported tonight. Wyoming still has the lowest coronavirus death count in the nation at 10. Well, despite today's announcement, Cascade County commissioners have decided to cancel the Montana State Fair in Great Falls. Now, the fair was scheduled to run July 24th through August 1st at the Montana Expo Park. That cancellation of the state fair just adds to scores of summer events across Montana that have already been canceled due to the restrictions.
You know, it would be a much changed state fair, and I think we could do better by sprucing up the grounds, sprucing up the buildings, getting some projects accomplished with the taxpayer money so that we're bigger and better next year.
Well, after today's announcement, we touched bases with Ray Massey, the Director of Marketing and Sales at Metro Park here in Billings, and he says Montana Fair is still on, and today's announcement does not change that. Montana Fair is scheduled for August 7th through the 15th here in Billings. Another event affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Tippet Rise Arts Center concert series held each year in Fishtail. Organizers canceled the 5th concert season due to health concerns, travel, and social distancing guidelines. Co-director of the Tippet Rise Arts Center, Pete Hinman, says the events usually bring 9,000 to 10,000 visitors per summer. Hinman also says trails in the area will be closed for the foreseeable future, since travelers would still have to enter Tippet Rise before enjoying their hike.
We really didn't want to be encouraging travel from across the country and even around the world to our neighboring, our surrounding community in Fishtown, Montana. We just decided that, in the interest of the safety of our guests, our musicians, and our staff, that canceling the season was the best thing for their health and safety.
Now, the owners say they are still hoping to bring virtual concerts to everyone who would have attended, and Hinman says refunds will be issued for all ticket holders. Well, it's no secret Montana's small businesses have been some of the hardest hit by this pandemic. But now it's easier for those business owners to apply for forgiveness for paycheck protection loans. MTN's Matt Hazoffel tells us how.
If you own a small business, odds are you've heard of Paycheck Protection Program loans. On May 15th, the Small Business Administration released the PPP Loan Forgiveness application, which will allow business owners to change those loans into grants. This isn't a new idea. In fact, the SBA had planned to do this the entire time. Now, it's just easier.
It's an 11-page document. We really recommend that anybody that received a PPP loan go and read that document yourself.
Guidelines published by the U.S. Department of the Treasury state that loan amounts will be forgiven as long as at least 75% of the funds were used to cover payroll costs.
Some of it includes the tracking of expenses. We're recommending that if you haven't already, it would be advisable to make sure that your PPP is in a separate account, that you can track every expense incurred to that account.
There are a number of rules and guidelines laid out in the application and instruction document, which can be found on the SBA and U.S. Treasury websites.
They've been saying that they were going to do that since the start, but nobody knew exactly what that meant. And so by the release of this 11-page document, that's the simplicity of it. It's pretty darn easy.
Loans were set to be due 2 years after the borrowing date with a 1% interest rate. The CARES Act also provided that forgiveness relief is limited if there is a reduction in the average number of full-time employees during the covered period when compared to a previous period, although there are some exceptions to this.
Jolene says the companies who want to apply for forgiveness should contact their bank or credit union, wherever you got the PPP loan, and let them know you want to apply as soon as possible. In Great Falls, Matt Olzaffel, MTN News.
And the Great Falls Development Authority has small business development coaches and advisors who can help you decide what's best for your business. Well, Governor Steve Bullock toured a Helena warehouse today to get a look at Montana's current stockpile of personal protective equipment for the COVID-19 emergency. State workers are collecting the supplies in Helena and distributing them to healthcare providers and counties across the state. The most recent supplies to come in, an order of 500,000 N95 masks from FEMA. Leaders say they're currently looking for more items like surgical gloves and gowns. The National Guard is also on hand putting together COVID-19 testing kits. Bullock praised agencies for working together to meet the state needs.
By and large, compared to where we were even 6 weeks ago, we're in a great position, and we're prepared to keep our healthcare providers and first responders equipped all throughout COVID-19.
And leaders say they expect the 500,000 masks at this warehouse will be fully allocated within the next few weeks. Well, with just 2 weeks until Montana's primary election date, the first big outside money spending is showing up in the race for governor. Washington, D.C. based group Emily's List, which supports women candidates, has bought nearly $700,000 in broadcast and digital ads to support Democrat Whitney Williams. Now, Williams is competing against Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney in the Democratic primary for governor. The ad, which started airing in several urban markets today, focuses on Williams' opposition to the proposed Black Butte copper mine north of White Sulphur Springs. Emily's List says its independent expenditure arm, Women Vote, has paid for the ads to run until June 2nd, Election Day. Now, the primary election is an all-mail ballot, and more than 120,000 people have already sent in those ballots. 3 Republicans are also running for Montana's open governor's seat. Well, a Billings man is now identified as the person who fell into the Boulder River near the Natural Bridge Falls this weekend and drowned. The Sweetgrass County Sheriff's Office says 48-year-old Joseph Crawford was hiking Sunday south of Big Timber. He walked off the trail toward the river, slipped and fell 50 to 60 feet into the water and was swept downstream through the falls and into the canyon below. Crawford's body has not yet been found despite search efforts, but he is presumed dead. Well, still ahead on tonight's 5:30 News, a look at how COVID-19 has changed the course for expecting moms. And in sports, Scott has a fun look back at one of the most memorable state softball finishes ever in Montana.
And coming up in weather, severe thunderstorms continue to pile up across western Montana. We have a thunderstorm watch out there, and we'll show you where coming up in just a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.